What does it mean to live a Christian life? What are the guideposts or markers? How can I know that I'm growing as a follower of Christ? How can I be assured that I am being a faithful follower? There are many ways to approach these questions. Some people would say that we're living the Christian life if we're following the 10 Commandments. Others will say that the golden rule is the measuring tape. Love your neighbor as yourself. For myself, I find my guidepost in the 25th chapter of Matthew's Gospel. The passage goes like this: When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? Then the king will say to them, Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. As you listen to this passage from Matthew's Gospel proclaimed, Who are you? Of course, you're the righteous to whom Jesus is speaking, and it's you who are asking, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer, Us. Truly I tell you, just as you did this to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. We call these 6 actions the Corporal Works of Mercy. Let's have a look at them. I was hungry, and you gave me food. Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry? Maybe it was a physical hunger that you saw and responded to. Maybe you gave a sandwich or a cup of tea to a street person. But there are other kinds of hunger. Maybe you sat patiently with someone whose heart was hungry for love or acceptance. Maybe it was your own child who'd come to a crisis of faith or belief. Maybe it was a hungry mind that you fed with knowledge. There are many kinds of hunger. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. Lord, when did we see you thirsty? Again, there are many kinds of thirst. Some people thirst for the living water, for the one Christ. Some thirst for forgiveness. Some are parched for company or for a kind word. If you have ever shared your faith or done a kind deed or said a kind word, you've satisfied a thirsting soul. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. By now you should be getting the picture. Haven't you welcomed into your home one of your children's friends? Someone who had no home to go to, no bed to sleep in, or no Christmas dinner to share with family. And you probably said, sure, anyone would do the same. Yes, anyone who had the heart of mercy that Jesus has. Now you must be getting the idea that it's not so much about particular actions, but about a disposition of the heart. Mercy is an attitude, a way of living. It is a grace-filled and graceful way of being in humble, loving relationship with others. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. Now, You may recognize this passage as one that we typically read in the church year near the end of the church year, in November. And it's usually interpreted as having to do with the Last Judgment. But I think that this list of 6 actions is not so much oriented to the next life as to this one. If we immerse ourselves in these 6 actions, we are on the way to living in continuity with our Savior. If we practice these 6 actions, they become part of us. They become our way of being, and we become not just merciful, we become mercy in the heart of a world that cries out for mercy. You see, most people have met criticism and rejection and judgment. Most people have met anger and condemnation, and their hearts are hungry for an alternative. Your voice offers the alternative. Your gentleness offers an alternative. Your presence paves the way for the unseen guest to enter into bruised lives. When you act with mercy, when you practice the corporal works of mercy, you continue the presence of Christ in the world. Mercy is never convenient, but it is always easy. It is always the loving, just, and right thing to do. And if we practice these 6 works, I believe that day in and day out, now as well as at the end of our lives and at the end of time, we will hear the gentle voice of Jesus saying to us, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." That kingdom, my friends, is not a place. It is people. You and I inherit each other. We are each other's keepers. Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of these, the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me.